to order, please stand for the pledge and remain standing.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's hold on for a moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Spellich.
Present.
Councilmember McMahon. Here. Councilmember Charno. Here. Councilmember Magazine. Councilmember Friedel.
Present.
Councilmember Grozbowski.
Present.
Thank you. Hopefully he'll come, if maybe we can make sure that he's on for the rest of the meeting. We start with our reports by council members, town manager, and mayor. We have Dave Trimble in here tonight for Grady. Do you have any report?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Thanks. Happy to be here, happy to be pinch hitting, and I'll be very happy to turn it back over to Grady, who's had a acute medical issue, but we expect him back next week, so hopefully he'll be on the mend. The only thing I had was we want to bring up Rachel Goodwin, our Community Services Director, with some good news about the gold medal designation for Community Services Department.
Hello. I will be brief. I was going to share a fun photo that was taken today while I read you something real quick to share. So there's our team. So if you haven't heard, we as the town of Fountain Hills have been honored as a finalist for the National Recreation and Park Association's Gold Medal. So with that in mind, I do have a little bit I wanted to let you know, just to understand what it is and what it means and why it's such a big deal. The National Gold Medal Award honors public park and recreation agencies throughout the United States that demonstrate excellence in long-range planning, resource management, and innovative approaches to delivering superb park and recreation services with fiscally sound business practices. Fountain Hills is honored to be selected as one of 4 national finalists for populations of 30,000 and under. That's a big deal, 1 in 4. The distinction represents the pinnacle of our industry and is a testament to our community, our partners, and our outstanding team. To be recognized as a finalist for the gold medal distinguishes Fountain Hills as a model agency. To be clear, this honor is not anecdotal, nor is it bestowed arbitrarily. It is highly coveted and represents the best of the best. Speaking on behalf of our community services team, we are honored and elated to compete as one of the top in the nation. I'd like to thank our council, our commissioners, and our volunteers for their support of our department and our ongoing efforts to advance our parks, our trails, and our programs. We have big ideas, and you have each played an integral role in helping them become reality. And I'd like to thank and recognize our staff. That's what our picture's for. With 13 full-time and 15 part-time who oversee our parks, our recreation programs, our community center, our senior services, our volunteer projects, and our special events. We are a small but mighty group. This team is an outstanding group. They never settle for good enough, and they look for ways to do more, go farther, and dream bigger. I'm extremely proud to be part of the community services team, and I'm very proud of the hard work that it took to become a gold medal finalist.
Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate you leading that charge, and I know that our community is so much the better for it. And when do you think we'll know anything?
Unfortunately, we have to exercise some patience. The next step is a 5-minute video that we will be submitting at the end of the month. It's due June 1st, so we're working on that diligently right now. If anyone saw me out in the parks yesterday, citing and reciting the same lines over, that will be submitted, and then we have to wait till the end of September to know who the award will actually go to. So we'll have to wait. But a number of us will be at the national conference to hopefully hear it firsthand.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
at
the record show I'm here. I hit the wrong button.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Councilman. Anything else, Dave? No, you have anything? Sharon, we'll let the councilwoman go first.
I was with a couple of my fellow council people to greet the drivers for the Barrett-Jackson road trip through Fountain Hills. That was fun. And I attended both of the league calls updating us on the latest state legislator activity. And I also attended the GPEC Regional Report, Grid Electrification and EV Consumer Trends, where we learned that the energy today, that we're using today, really needs to be changing over the next few years through our grid infrastructure. In 2020, EV sales increased 43% globally. So we're kind of ahead of the curve by actually having charging stations now. And business models, as companies look to move or expand or wherever, whether it be same state or different state, what they're looking to include is on-site charging. So that was a big part of our conversation with GPEC that day. Thank you.
Well, she kind of stole my thunder. I filled in for you, Mayor, because you were busy with the MAG event, but I addressed the participants in the Barrett-Jackson Roadshow. I think there was 43 cars, classic cars, from people from all over the country. It started here. They were all photographed, had their cars photographed with the fountain going. Peter Volney, who is the director of Concourse in the Hills, also addressed the crowd. Those were all people that he knew and that he associated with in the classic car market. Craig Jackson and his wife personally thanked us for having it here and hosting it, and talked to a lot of the car owners who were really impressed with Fountain Hills, thought it was beautiful. A couple of them talked about being interested in donating to the planetarium. I said we could put their name on whatever they want if the check was big enough. And so it went really well. So I think we're going to get some really good press out of it. So thanks.
Like my fellow council persons, I also attended the Barrett-Jackson event, and I got my eye on one of those Bugattis that were out there, maybe in my next lifetime. But it was a fantastic event, and the town got a lot of great publicity for that. I also attended a GPAC Domestic Violence Council event, and they've got many training initiatives going on to bring people up to speed on domestic violence, which has really risen because of COVID as well. So they've got some training initiatives that will include judges, prosecutors, first responders, and even including some school districts so that people can be aware of how prevalent this issue is. I also attended the Chamber of Commerce had a stakeholders meeting for financial professionals in town. And I just want to take a second and give a shout out. We have so many good financial professionals in this town. There'll be more on that because they're going to have some more meetings, and they're going to have some accreditation series for these individuals in town. So I'll keep you up to speed on that. But look to our town. We have some good financial professionals here, and they're ready to help people that need the help. I also attended the Fountain Hills Days on Saturday. There were a lot of vendors, the town, and a lot of support out there, and it was a great little event down at the theater. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I missed the stakeholder meeting for financial people at the chamber, but had another event, but hopefully I'll make the next one. Looking forward to that. And speaking of the chamber, they had a big ribbon cutting last week. Several of us were there at the Fountain Hills Medical Center. Huge crowd and really good reception for that facility, so that was a very positive thing. Got a Valley Metro meeting tomorrow, and I think that's... Oh, and we had a coalition sector meeting the other week. Just a lot of goodbyes. You know, Mrs. D is leaving McDowell Mountain Elementary School and getting a new school resource officer over at the high school, and the assistant principal at the high school is leaving, so we kind of had some goodbyes for all those people, but we continue and move forward, and we'll keep going. So that's it for me.
Alan, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Thanks. I wanted to mention that May is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. There was an article that National League sent to all of us in nlc.org. It was really good. I did go to the GPEC, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council Mayor Supervisors meeting. We had our first, that I went to, East Valley Mayor's Lunch in person in Chandler. And also the East Valley, this is what I thought you were going to talk about, the East Valley Partnership Annual Meeting, and Peggy's on the board there. And I gave a PowerPoint, and I want to thank Amanda and Bo and everybody that put these pictures together. It was actually focusing on health, wellness for our community, and outdoor style. And it did feature the medical center. We went to the ribbon cutting for that, for the ER. We've been hearing more and more anecdotal stuff about people going and using it and being very pleased. One of the things I said at the PowerPoint was that phase 2 was set to start next year, and it will incorporate operating rooms to allow general and orthopedic surgeries, as well as specialized procedures. So no other plans for that. I also attended the Fountain Hills Day. That was great. Thanks to the Chamber for that. And then the director of the museum, so about over a year ago, she and the Library Association had been meeting with people who've lived in Fountain Hills for more than 30 years and in groups and such. And so she had to put it on pause for a year, basically. So me and my sisters and I got to do that. And it's going to be an archive. It's going to be, I guess, a nice history of Fountain Hills. So I look forward to seeing that with the anecdotal and the other personal history of our community. That's that. Our next item is the scheduled public appearances and presentation. And we're very pleased to have Amy St. Peter here from MAG, Maricopa Association of Governments, who's going to talk to us about some of the efforts that we've been concentrating on. Fountain Hills is a member of the Maricopa Association of Governments. We are usually focusing on transportation, air quality, and things like that, but she's going to tell us a little bit about something that has become quite the issue for every single city and town. Welcome. Did you have anything to mention?
No, just happy to have you here, Amy. She's at our East Valley Managers Meeting every month. She's the Deputy Executive Director, so just happy to have you here. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you. The purpose of my presentation today is to offer you some information about these regional efforts, but even really more importantly, it's to listen to you. It's to listen to your priorities, your preferences, your concerns, your questions. We very much want to make sure that we are aligning these regional efforts with your local priorities. It helps us to hear from you directly in terms of how we may best serve you as a member agency of the Maricopa Association of Governments and as a very important partner in this work. So thank you so very much for having me here. Please do feel free to jump in at any point with questions or comments. I'd love to have your feedback throughout the presentation. So moving forward then, I just want to make sure that we're really grounded in this. We have talked with literally 1,600 different people. We've had scores of different events, extensive research and outreach, but really it all boils down to this. It boils down to reducing the numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness right now throughout our region, both the ones that we can see as well as the many, many who are kind of hidden from view for a number of different reasons. We very much want to increase the access to homeless assistance programs throughout the entire region. Even if someone isn't housed currently, they still consider the community that they live in to be their home community. And they can stabilize so much more quickly and so much more effectively when they're close to their job, to their family, to their friends, to their faith community, to their children's school. And so we want to make sure that people have opportunities to stabilize throughout the region. We also want to strengthen the safety net for all people, and there's two important factors in that. The first is a safety net. We want to be very focused on prevention. It's simply more cost-effective as well as humane and compassionate to prevent someone from becoming homeless in the first place. To put those measures in place, it saves us money, it saves them time and heartache as well. And also to focus on all people, making sure that all people have opportunities, have the support that they need to stabilize and be able to contribute positively to their communities, to be able to give back to their communities. And so we're keenly focused on these three items in particular. This work is only possible because of a diverse, talented array of partners throughout the entire region. We consider you to be a partner. We've been very fortunate to have you participating in our events, giving us your feedback, helping us to align our regional efforts with your local priorities. So we want to thank all of our partners and to thank you for contributing to these important activities. These are the main topics I'll be covering today. Please do feel free to jump in, though, and ask any questions, and particularly to offer your feedback throughout this presentation and our time together tonight. All of these efforts are very much data-driven. We want to make sure that we are focusing our efforts and basing our efforts on the data and having the data really drive that discussion. So we'll spend a few moments touching on these topics tonight. The first one is a dramatic increase in homelessness, not just in our region, but really throughout the entire country. So for our point-in-time count, that includes both the population that's both sheltered as well as unsheltered. This is a 4th year in a row where we've seen pretty steady increases. We also had the dubious distinction of having the highest percentage increase in the entire country for general homelessness at about 9.7%, as well as for homeless individuals at 9.8%. We're also 5th highest in the country for the percentage increase in the number of homeless families at 9.3%. So we are our numbers of homelessness are escalating faster than our peers across the country, and there are a number of different factors that contribute to that increase. I do also want to point out that according to the last point in time count, that was the first year where we had more people unsheltered than we did sheltered. We simply had more people than we can accommodate in the shelters, and that's unusual. Normally we're able to keep pace better. So we're seeing increases across the country, but really here significantly. Like I said, there are a number of factors that do contribute to that. One of them is employment. We've seen through the economic impacts of COVID-19 that lower wage workers have been affected in a disproportionate way. So they're losing their jobs more quickly, and as a result, they're less able to take care of their own needs on their own. And that very much includes rent. So at the same time that more people are losing their jobs, they're also losing their rent. I just heard about a woman this week whose rent, she just found out that it's increasing by $600 every month. $600, that is simply unattainable and unsustainable for her, particularly keeping in mind that she's not making a whole lot of money to begin with. We've seen this trend over the past 10 years. That's great news for the landlords who are able to charge higher rents. It's really a challenge, though, for those who are living right on that cusp, whereas they might be able to make the rent this month. When it goes up by $600, they simply can't take that. Also, the American dream of owning a home is becoming less and less of a reality for an increasing number of people. Again, this is great news for those of us who own our homes. Our property values are going up, and that's fantastic. It's hard, though, for people just entering the market, and it's hard for them, particularly looking at that housing stock of about $200,000. You can see 10 years ago that made up the majority of our market, and now it's increasingly harder to find. That affects people that you might not normally think of right away, such as those living on a fixed income, like retirees. And so we're keeping this in mind because this is affecting a much broader swath of the population than what we might have anticipated otherwise. We also know that with the moratorium on evictions, that's kept a lot of people housed during COVID-19. That moratorium will be lifted, and when it does, we anticipate a significant increase in the numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness right now. So the moratorium has delayed that. We're expecting to see a surge, though, and many of them will lose their homes, and many of them will become homeless, some of them for the first time ever. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea when the moratorium is going to be lifted in the region?
You know, I don't have a definite date. I do know that a federal court decision had said that the CDC did not have authority to implement that. I've not heard a specific date, though, when that will be repealed. Mm-hmm. I've seen some forecasting, though, around an anticipated increase in homelessness, and it can be as high as 20 to 30%. So we are bracing ourselves and wanting to put the infrastructure into place now to make sure that we can handle any increase that we might see come about.
So as MAG continues to plan and brace for this, you guys are, taking into consideration the high influx that's going to happen within probably
Yes.
by the end of the year?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Councilmember.
I have a question.
Thank you.
I guess when you asked for questions during your presentation, you didn't just mean them, you mean us too?
I defer to the mayor, but I'm...
Well, we don't usually, but what did you want to ask?
Well, the thing is, this is done in one large area. Do you have anything that you're breaking this down by the towns? versus the whole mass.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can see how Fountain Hills is doing compared to all these other towns. and how
Yes,
far away are they
absolutely.
and all of that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Okay. Okay. Yes, I will absolutely address that. Thank you very much for that question. In terms of the question then, we do have data available at the community level in various points along the way. So for example, with the evictions, we do have that data on our MAG website right now, and that's broken down by community. We do have data by community for the point in time count that was conducted, and we have data available at that community level as well. It just depends on the data source. Also, the Homeless Management Information System, which is region-wide, we can pull data from that at the community level as well. So we'd be happy to make that available. So we see that there are a number of factors that contribute to people experiencing homelessness. And we ask people who are experiencing homelessness what contributed to them losing their homes. And so this is what they've said. So this is data pulled from our Homeless Management Information System. The top 3 reasons are family disputes. Often that's people being kicked out by their family members, overcrowding, disagreements, things like that, different economic reasons, as well as eviction. You'll also see substance use and mental health on there as well. We see about, it's 10% and about 16% on this chart. I just pulled on the most current data, and we're right between 13 to 15%. So that does contribute to people losing their homes. And so as we're developing our solutions and strategies, it's important to keep that in mind and make sure that as we're offering these solutions, that we're offering at the same time the services that people will need in order to stabilize and maintain their housing, as well as their sobriety and good mental health. So when we're looking at the demand for services, we're not just looking at people who are experiencing homelessness currently. For example, so kind of referring back to our conversation then about the moratorium being lifted, there's a significant population who's at risk. And some of them are very much known, and others are not known because they haven't entered the system yet. So we looked at the data of callers to 211. That's the information and referral line for the entire region. And we can see that people are calling into 211 from literally all throughout the region, some in higher concentrations in some communities than others, but literally it shows that the need for assistance at various levels is present throughout the entire region. And this escalates even more so when we consider vulnerable households. So a pretty standard indicator for that is if you're paying more than 30% of your income every month on housing. We find that even in affluent communities that you'll find people who are paying 30%, maybe even sometimes 50% or more of their income on housing. This makes them very vulnerable. So if they do lose their job, if they have a significant car accident, for example, or significant medical bills, if you have a married couple and a spouse passes away and they're on a fixed income, all of these changing life events can trigger the entrance into homelessness. And so we want to be aware of this because sometimes when we think about homelessness, we think of that as being concentrated maybe in just a few communities. But when we look at the population at risk, truly, we are looking at this region-wide. We're also looking at the services and making sure that people have access to homeless assistance programs throughout the entire region. We have programs available in some parts of the region, but not others. And so we want to make sure that we're working very closely with communities to help communities really choose the intervention that works best for their residents, both housed as well as unhoused, looking at prevention as well as direct interventions as people are experiencing homelessness. So we've been building up an infrastructure. So much in the way that we build our roads and our housing and our hospitals, our medical centers, we need to be thinking about what is the infrastructure to address homelessness and how can we build that up and strengthen that throughout the entire region. So last fall, we started strengthening these regional efforts, and we started off with initial research and outreach that has continued in a very robust way. We are right at that blue circle right there with the regional strategies that is moving forward through the MAG committee cycle this month for action, and then beginning next month, we'll be pivoting to implementation. So our vision and mission were collaboratively developed by all of our stakeholders, including input from you as our member agency and other partners throughout the region. We want to make sure that every community is a strong, safe, and healthy community, and that when homelessness does occur, it's rare, brief, and one time. We wanted to make sure that we were grounding these efforts in your local priorities and your strategies. So we started off by creating an inventory of more than 300 different strategies that are present in various communities throughout the entire region. We also canvassed the entire country to make sure that we're learning from the best, most effective strategies nationally. And then we've been able to filter all of that through outreach, through research, to be able to come up with the most viable strategies and action steps for our region to take right now. So in terms of the outreach then, it has been extremely diverse. We've held 10 different forums. Thank you so much for participating in those. You'll see that we're talking with a wide variety of different partners in different sectors. There's not any one community that creates homelessness, nor is there any one community that can solve homelessness. And so we're finding, particularly in talking with the faith community, the business community, there are many talented partners in different sectors throughout the entire region. And so they stand ready and willing to partner with us to address this issue. The public is very much an important partner in that effort. There are many efforts underway that are critical to this moving forward. There are some solutions that are more effective than others. For example, when folks are asking for money on the streets or they're panhandling, it's very natural and very humane to want to assist them. We are finding, though, sometimes that perhaps a very effective approach could be to try and redirect them to an outreach team, because the outreach teams can connect them with services and really help to make sure that they're getting the benefits for which they're entitled, such as veterans benefits, also that they have access to housing solutions that can be sustained for the long term. So we also have been conducting surveys because we want to make sure that we're reaching all people, such as law enforcement. So your law enforcement needs to be out in the community keeping your residents safe. So we gave them a survey instead of asking them to take time out of their day. And so we've been hearing from them, the first responders, and from persons with lived experience or people who are experiencing homelessness right now or in the past, and finding out from them what is your role and how can we support you in that role. And all of this has been used to help to refine these regional strategies. We've conducted a significant amount of data analysis as well. That includes an extensive literature review. Again, also looking at what are the considerations that communities need to take into account when they're citing new homeless assistance programs. As we're expanding that geographic footprint, there may be some communities who are offering services or programs perhaps for the first time. We want to make sure that you have, that you're able to leverage expertise of others who have done so very successfully, and that your efforts will be successful as well. So these are the regional strategies. They've been categorized into these 5 different areas. These are the most critical areas for our region, and these represent action steps that we can take right now to build up that regional infrastructure. These are the 14 strategies. You can see there's an array of them. It's critically important to provide lots of on-ramps for communities to be able to fully participate in these regional efforts. So it's not expected, nor would it necessarily be appropriate for every community to implement all 14 strategies. What this represents is a range of solutions that offers multiple ways that communities can be involved in these regional efforts, and knowing which strategies resonate the best with you helps us to help you and helps us to be able to support you as we look forward to which option might work best for your community. Moving forward then, we want to make sure that all of this data is available to you 24/7. We have collected a significant amount of data. It's much more sophisticated than what we've been able to gather in the past. And so this will be available to you. It's called HANDUP, or the Homelessness Assets and Needs Data for Unified Planning tool. This is an interactive map that's available to you on the MAG website. This will be password protected initially. We'll provide that to you so that you can really dive in and look at some more sensitive data sets that you can use for your local planning. We are using this for our regional planning as well. We will have a public-facing portion of this as well in the future. And when you click on one of those icons, you'll see data that's populated from 211. And so as you're considering how best to meet the needs of your residents, both housed and unhoused, as well as those at risk, you'll have a lot of information right at your fingertips. You'll also be able to draw your own geography for analysis and print off reports and maps. These are the next steps that we're moving forward with then. As I said, the strategy portfolio is moving through this month in the MAG committee cycle. It's been through management committee. It'll go to regional council at the end of this month. From there, we'll be pivoting very quickly into implementation. We'll have a capstone event on June 10th. We do hope that you'll join us. At that time, we'll be looking at how do we build bridges and break down the barriers to being able to implement this important work moving forward, particularly in terms of the development of the implementation plan, which will include detailed outcome measures and as well as tactics. We are in the midst right now of developing regional funding targets and scenarios. We're projecting what we'll need in terms of housing units, shelter beds, diversion and prevention services, as well as how much that will cost. There are significant funding partners who are very committed to this work, such as the United Way, and other sources that you might not think of necessarily, like Access. Access has millions of dollars already allocated to provide the services that people need to stabilize. So we're working very closely with them to be able to leverage their support and to be able to build up a funding portfolio that is sustainable and diversified. That concludes my formal presentation. I'd be happy to take any direction, guidance, or questions that you might have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments for Amy? Yes, Councilman.
Does your data collection include reservations too?
The Native Nations?
Yes, Native Nations, I'm sorry.
They participate, their homeless management information system is a different data system. We are working with our Native Nations though, because homelessness has, there's some different funding opportunities for them, and this manifests in different ways in every community. And so we are working with them, but there is an opportunity to collect even more data in working with them.
So if the public wanted to find out more about this, what would they do? Would they work through us, or is there a website they can go to, or?
Absolutely, great question. Thank you so much, Council Member. The link that you see on your screen right now will take you directly to all of the materials that have been developed in response to these regional efforts. All of our studies are posted on there. We also do have reports for each of the outreach forums. So it's a tremendous amount of data, as well as links to other data sources. Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is a question for the captain back there, or attorney, or you, but you know, transportation obviously is usually a big issue for the homeless, and I know some people through the years, you know, it's like if we have homeless individuals out here, it's like, well, why don't we have the sheriffs just pick them up and take them to a shelter? And I seem to recall there's some restrictions there, or some kind of distance factors. I don't know if maybe I'm misreading something over the years, but does that ring a bell? Or
I'm not sure what restrictions might be in place for your local law enforcement. In terms of outreach teams, for example, and to your point about transportation, just to touch on that, transportation is absolutely a critical issue, is very much intertwined with one's ability to be able to provide for themselves, to be able to access really needed assistance, whether that's a job or services, benefits, schooling, things like that. So transportation is very much a focus. We've had our transportation planners actually present in all of our strategy sessions, because we understand that transportation is an underlying need no matter which strategy we are working within. In terms of access to shelters and outreach teams, there are outreach teams who do serve the region, and so I'd be happy to put you in touch with them. They do excellent work. It does take a lot of time to build up the rapport with people who are experiencing homelessness, to be able to encourage them to access services that they might be entitled to receive. And so if there's any other forms of assistance that we can provide to help connect people with those services, then we're absolutely happy to do just that.
so how would these outreach teams, or how do they work then? How does that transpire?
Absolutely. A lot of it is about relationship building, particularly when people have been experiencing homelessness for a significant amount of time. There's very little trust, and they've been through a lot, basically. So there's a fair amount of trauma involved as well. And so the outreach teams are absolute experts in being able to build up a rapport with people who have been living on the streets for some time, really helping them to understand what their needs are and what some of the options are. From there, they're able to connect them with services for which they might be eligible. There's a broad range of different services that are available throughout the region, and so they can really help to collect them. We do also have a regional by name list. So it's a list literally of people who are experiencing homelessness, and we work through that list to connect people with services, with housing, and to make sure that they are that they have all of the documentation, for example, that they're housing ready, that they're really ready and able to maintain housing once they're able to secure that. And so the outreach teams really walk through that with them and help them to navigate that system. It's like someone going through the medical care system. It can be tough to navigate if you're not familiar with the terminology, all of that, the providers. In a similar way, it helps someone to have kind of a navigator to walk them through the homeless service delivery system and to make sure that they're able to access the services as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a new, kind of a new topic for all of us. You know, it's gotten, it's increased. You know, it's always been something, but with our, you know, little community, it's sort of like getting a lot of attention. I wanted to mention that the fact that what you're doing is a regional effort, of course. MAG is our you know, planning organization, as I mentioned earlier with the transportation, like Mike with RPTA. But given that, we don't have a lot of services here. You know, we're not in the same boat as some of the larger communities. But I think what those larger communities wanted us to know was that it was important for us to all look at this as a regional issue. Transportation for us is something that, without having services here, we are under legal obligation to you know, we can't just haul, you know, do the things that we've been talking about. We have obligations, so we're navigating it also, especially with the solicitation. I know that's not the main focus of what MAG is doing, but when we increased our budget this year, it was in light of what MAG is doing, and so that we are part of that, and that we're part of the solution when it comes forth. And it's obviously not going to be any kind of a, you know, special magic button or anything, but that we all have responsibilities because the issue is touching everybody. We really appreciate the data-driven information that you're giving us. And that we expect there will be, and we have regional council next week, to see what we can do as a community with such as we are, our size, and the things that we do have available. And I just wanted to make sure anybody, if Alan had any questions or if anybody else has any questions. This is a presentation to the council, so I know I let somebody ask, but that's not really what we do here. But you can call us or contact MAG anytime there's a ton of information. And this isn't done yet. You know, you can, as Amy said, we're going to be looking at it next week, and then we'll take the next steps, and we'll come up with a portfolio, and some of that stuff may suit Fountain Hills. So we really appreciate you coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. It's been a pleasure to have this time with you. I do encourage you, please feel free to reach out anytime. That is my direct phone number as well as email address, and I look forward to your feedback throughout this process. Thank you very much for your partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is called to the public. Do we have cards? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, the first one is Larry Myers.
Mayor, council, I was going to let you up for air on this, but then my pool broke. So you're scratching your head going, what's that got to do with detox centers? So I'll tell you what it has to do with it. So I read through the 500 pages of the FOIA, and I came away with a couple of takes. And one of them was a business whose owners live in Scottsdale requested a realtor from Scottsdale to pursue their business expansion of a product that I'm certain 80% of the people in Fountain Hills don't want. Then the Fountain Hills senior planner, who lives in Scottsdale, comments that negative view of facilities such as these are perceived, not real. I said to myself, now the mayor and Councilman Charnell, as well as myself, who have all been here a really long time, no, if we wanted to be Scottsdale, we could have been Scottsdale a long time ago. Mayor Castillo guided us to where we are today, Fountain Hills. That's who we are, Fountain Hills. We're not Scottsdale. So why are we even listening to these people from Scottsdale? That's things running through my mind. So then we direct the town services director to go investigate all this stuff, and he lives in Mesa, and he comes back and says, you know, they might be hanging in the parking lot because things could be really bad with this type of facility. So tonight, I'm going to tell you that the report is, it's not perceived. It's reality, Mr. Senior Planner. I buy pool parts at a place in West Phoenix. The guy's name is Perry. He's got the best prices in town, by the way. You might want to check him out. Now, Perry's in a commercial center, and 2 years ago, everything was fine over there. So I went for my pool park yesterday, and a place called Community is in that center now. It's a subacute detox facility. So while I was there, I got accosted by the subacute people and the Phoenix PD, who were in the parking lot there all the time, intervened on my behalf, and I needed to go back today. And today, the EMS and the fire truck and the PD were in there, and somebody must have OD'd in the parking lot. Okay, so that's all well and good. Now, no one on the staff or the council knows more about behavioral health facilities in commercial districts than me. I lived it for 4 years next to our properties in Austin, Texas, and I challenge you to know more than me. But what I do propose, since education is the key on all of this stuff, I propose y'all pile yourself in a van, take the staff too, go over and sit in the parking lot over at this place, 2802 West Cactus. Sit there for 30 minutes in broad daylight and imagine what it's like at night. And I'll tell you, when you come home, you won't talk about a recovery center in Fountain Hills ever again.
Thank you, Larry, the 3 minutes. Thank you. Next.
Crystal Kavanaugh.
I too am going to address the detox units, and allowing detox units in Fountain Hills, commercial zones, or anywhere, the C2, C3, wherever they're going to go, is not the vision of most Fountain Hills residents who choose to live in this beautiful place. I realize it was removed from the agenda, but I know it will definitely reappear. So I wanted to make my point. This topic was first brought up to the council at your retreat on February 23rd, although I think, Mayor, you knew about it on February 3rd, that realtors in January 2021 were inquiring about zoning and detox units on behalf of an interested party. Well, after receiving my FOIA documents this week, it was confirmed that it was a Scottsdale realtor, Remax Ascend, a couple women out of Scottsdale representing Fountain Hills Recovery Center, and emailing our town staff to find out if zoning allowed these detox units. Fountain Hills Recovery Center was interested in putting a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week detox unit in a commercial zone. Here in Fountain Hills, that was actually near a daycare. I think they referenced it as 2 buildings from the daycare. And Fountain Hills Recovery wanted to expand their already existing outpatient business and sober house businesses to include this detox unit. And of course, importing more people from outside this area with drug and alcohol problems will likely result in even more sober houses being rented or purchased in our single-family neighborhoods, since the sober house businesses are generally the next step after detox. I'm not even sure what treatment level the people currently in these sober houses have received, since HIPAA and the ADA restrict us from even knowing some of these things or even knowing where these locations are. 11 unrelated people often live in these homes and can also have coexisting conditions along with their substance abuse. My opinion is these absentee landlords who continue to rent these homes out should be accountable for some of these unforeseen consequences that may occur in these neighborhoods. So if detox units are allowed and approved in our commercial zones, what's the effect on our local businesses? How many more applications for detox units will be submitted to operate in Fountain Hills if one is approved? One may promise to be high-end, but what about the others? Do daycares and detox units mix in the very same block? Some choose to leave detox early against advice. Where do they go? Out the front door, to the park? Also, some who relapse can be kicked out of sober living, and then what? Those of you representing the people of Fountain Hills need to put the best interest of the residents first. The detox units do not bring benefits to Fountain Hills, but there can be unintended consequences. Please say no to detox businesses when this topic does return to the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. I would just like to ask if you could send me what you're saying, that you're saying I knew.
There was a February 3rd email where you put it on the agenda. It just said C2 detox. And so it probably came to your attention from all those questions at the end of January from the realtors.
I had no idea about any of the stuff you're saying as far as realtors and where it was going to be or anything. So
Actually, I might have it on my phone, actually, right now. Okay, I will do that, no problem.
Okay. Next, please.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good evening, and staff. I'm here to talk about the crosswalk, but I find it so ironic how we're still talking about the detox centers, which are a major concern, and we've seen a presentation on homelessness. And if you go right down the street at the new, quote, medical facility, there's a gentleman out there. I would love to know what you're going to do about him. And there's been as many as 4 people on that corner. So whether they're homeless, they're panhandling. So I understand the compassion that's needed that her presentation brought, but at the same token, you have people living here in Fountain Hills that really, that's not why they're here. So I think there's a disconnect. And obviously there's people asking questions in the audience. And we know that's not the forum here, but it would be nice to have a question and answer for the public instead of on a formal level like this, because you guys can't answer questions, and we know that. So that I think it's time, for that. So the reason I came to speak tonight was because of the crosswalk that's being, it's already, you guys have already voted on it at Tower and Saguaro. And so there's some questions there, and a lot of those questions come from this picture that was in the Fountain Hills Times. So you're going to have 4 18-foot, according to one of the articles, 4 18-foot streetlights here. Okay. 1, is that going to set a precedent for the rest of the town? 2, are these going to be on 24 hours a day? 3, is there a button to be pushed? I mean, this rendering, like most renderings that happen here that I've seen, this rendering is not showing correctly what that statement made in the Fountain Hills Times, which was 18 foot. These are anywhere from about 12, maybe 15 feet. So this is deceiving to the public, okay? So are we lighting up Saguaro? It's pitch black there. Another possibility might have been you paid $80,000 for a consulting firm to actually look at this location and design it. And did anybody look at Panorama and Saguaro? It's more of a location that seems to make better sense instead of the dip that's coming into that darkness. Let's hope somebody doesn't get hurt here. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So anyway, that's that, and I'm not sure what else is going to happen, how many signs are going to be put up. What's the reality? Again, in the rendering, put all the signs and everything else. So, thank you.
Thank you, and we'll get back to you. I mean, we talked about it. I can't remember right now, but we'll, Justin will let you know what's going on. Thanks. Next.
Next is Thomas Jacobs.
I first want to thank every one of you for your work and with the community. We love Fountain Hills. My wife and I have been here for 16 years up in the North Heights area, and we live right next to Linda Schwaba. If you probably remember her, because I think she was a part of this group. I just wanted to talk about the detox center from this standpoint. Being here for over a decade and a half, we've always noticed, and this is it's happened over a period of time, where we look at Fountain Hills not wanting to be like Scottsdale and not allowing commercial growth to bring in people from the outside and make this, it's always tended to want to be a nice little bedroom community, and I applaud that. But now I'm going to tell you how this dovetails into the detox center. What happens is we're trying to not bring people in, and we sometimes financially, especially budget-wise, et cetera, by not producing the extra revenue that all this extra business would bring in from people from the outside, you're now trying to sell the residents, possibly on bringing in people who have problems, probably won't add to our revenue, might reduce our largest asset. For most everybody, the largest asset is their house, and they've already paid for that. So that's a done deal. So my problem with the detox center is it doesn't fit what we've been trying to do here for the last 15 or 20 years. So with that, that's all I'll say is that, you know, I think everybody here is very cognizant of the community, what we represent, happy with the way we are. I know we need to grow, but I also wanted to point out one other thing with the homelessness thing. When she was flashing up those maps very quickly, almost every one of them was between I-17 and the 101, coming down towards the airport and across Mesa, where all the centers were. Well, that's where all the problems are. So why are we getting involved in that? I know it's a regional thing and so forth, but what are they going to do for us? So anyway, that's enough. Thank you so much.
I only have, I have one more card that I don't know, it's a written comment, and it's regarding the detox center. So I don't know if you want it read or. Okay, this is from Carol Ann Naso or Naso. I am very supportive of drug addiction treatment centers, having sought successful treatment for alcohol addiction 20 years ago. I believe that those seeking help should be offered comprehensive, compassionate, structured, and rigorous education and treatment in a safe, quiet, contemplative setting. With this in mind, I am vehemently opposed to the establishment of a drug addiction treatment facility within the town limits of Fountain Hills. These folks would be better served by establishing the center in a quiet, serene, and more rural location outside the town limits. Feel free to contact me, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything else? Okay.
Mayor, I know it's not common, but we've heard from 5 people on detox centers here tonight, and a number of us have heard a lot more than that.
You know, Aaron, would you let us know how our limitations here? Sorry.
Yeah. So I want to ask this council and the mayor if it would be worth giving some direction to the town to bring back some kind of an informal report on regulating these facilities in town.
I don't think we should really talk about it because it's not on the agenda. But we can certainly talk to Aaron, and we can talk to Grady and to Dave to swing back. But
yeah,
I mean, it's tempting to talk about it now, but we
Mayor and council, and I think we're getting at, both sides are getting at the same thing here, that statutorily during call to the public on matters that are not on the agenda, we're allowed to respond to criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future council agenda. So to the extent there's direction to staff, that's as far as we'll go, you know, staff to evaluate. It sounds like what Councilman Friedel is asking for is options about, well, you know, how, whether in terms of restricting or regulating or permitting, what are the range of our options as a town? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mayor,
yes, Councilman?
I respond to the request from the councilman.
I don't know. Aaron?
If we don't want to go too far in discussion, Councilman, but if there's direction to be provided or clarification of that direction, I would think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
I guess I don't understand why we want the staff to take their time to do this. This has become an issue that I do not understand. There has been no application. There's nothing pending on the agenda. I really don't understand all this.
Thank you. We will discuss this afterwards with staff, and we'll figure out what we want to do moving forward. I understand, Alan.
I don't,
You don't, what?
I disagree wholeheartedly. I believe it's something we need to look into.
We will, that's what I'm saying, we will, yeah. Thank you. I just don't want to talk about it now anymore. Okay, thank you. Next is our regular agenda. We don't have consent agenda this time. And our first order of business is consideration of the annual report of the implementation of the general plan. Hi.
Hello. So while I get this pulled up, I don't know if you have any preliminary comments. Let's see. There we go. Okay. I'm going to do that. I might. I guess it's showing up there fine, so maybe we're good. It just doesn't look quite right on here. We can go ahead and get started, though. Mayor and Council, good evening. Here, first item for me to visit with you tonight is about our general plan annual report. Okay, so it changed on here, but it's not going up there. I don't know. In a minute, Mike will show up here and he'll fix it for me. Arizona revised statutes require that for a town or city that has a general plan, that annually the planning agency is to present a report to the governing body outlining any progress that's happened with implementation of that plan. And so yeah, I kept pushing that button. That's all it would do.
Let's try restarting it.
Oh, goodness, okay. It's right here. That's what we're here about this evening, is to present to you that annual report. And there we go. He's got the magic fingers. All right. So we have prepared that report for the 2020 calendar year. In our newly approved 2020 general plan, it gives some outline about this report and what it should include each year. And so those are the items we will cover this year, and you'll see in future years. Any amendments that have been processed throughout the year, the progress or status to implement any of the action items, any policy issues that have arisen with regard to the plan, and any recommendations for making amendments to the plan. So in this last year, in 2020, we did process one general plan amendment under the old 2010 plan. We also then, in terms of any progress or status of implementation actions, we used the 2010 plan, which was what we had for most of last year, in effect, because that was in effect until the voters approved the new plan in November. We did use it as a guide for the review of different development applications as they came through the process. The major thing, though, was to draft and receive approval of the 2020 update to the plan. And since then, we have been working with the other department directors to take the action plan that's in the back of the new plan and divide it up into the departments, make sure each department knows what their focus areas are as they work on their individual plans through the year. So that'll form the basis in coming years to respond to this piece. There have been no policy issues arise with the new plan, and we have no recommendations for amendments to the new plan at this time. So you have attached to your report that plan, and take any questions you may have about it. Otherwise, look for your approval of that plan or acceptance of that plan.
Thank you. Any
report.
questions for John? This is your easy one tonight, John. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move to accept and file the 2020 general plan annual report.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Next.
So, Mayor and
It's
Council.
our sign ordinance.
The Vice Mayor's favorite topic for me to get up here and talk about for extended periods. So you're welcome, Vice Mayor. I'm glad to be back again. I will. So, as you know, we've been working to update the town's sign ordinance. And tonight we're here to actually hold a public hearing on the draft ordinance and potentially approve an ordinance. So what we have proposed will take the definitions out of Chapter 1 of the zoning ordinance, put it into the sign code, and then otherwise we're repealing and replacing the existing Chapter 6 sign regulations in the zoning ordinance with these actions. Your agenda includes both a resolution and an ordinance. Because the ordinance is so long and we have to publish the ordinance, we have this alternate mechanism where you can approve a resolution that makes that ordinance available through the town clerk's office, and then the ordinance adopts that resolution by reference. So you have both those items on the agenda for your consideration. And then we've been working, one of the impetuses behind this has been to make the ordinance content neutral as required by the Reed versus Town of Gilbert Supreme Court decision. This process began over a year ago. We started with some staff review of our court ordinance and issues and challenges we had in it, and to identify what we thought were the content-based regulations that were in there. We met with the citizens stakeholders group to also give us some feedback from the public about what might be important to consider as we went forward with this process. We then started drafting the plan, reviewed it with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and got their recommendation of support last year. And we've held the 3 review sessions with the council to get your direction in terms of the ordinance. And so we have a few modifications then to the ordinance as it was recommended by the P&Z Commission. 3 amendments in section 602, which is the definition section. So we've made some minor amendments to the A-frame and temporary sign definitions, make them a little bit more specific. We've made some amendments to the banner and flag definitions, make it a little bit more clear and distinguish the two from each other. And then also with the residential directional signs, remove some of the language in there to focus it a little bit more and take out some language that was redundant. In section 603B, we made amendment to provide for permits for banners as the council directed. In 607B2 and 608D, we removed some language that would have allowed some temporary signs in the right-of-way of Shea Boulevard. In 608A, which is A-frame sign, or A1, which is A-frame signs, A12, which is the post and board signs, and 17, which are the yard signs. That's where we handled the concern the council had with allowing signs in the right-of-way. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but in the ordinance we have presented, we have 2 options for you to consider and give us final direction on this evening. In 608A1, we removed an allowance for A-frame signs with balloons to be 3 feet from the curb. In 80A1 and D3 and 4, we removed time limits on the temporary signs. Again, the council directed that if we're not allowing them in the right-of-way, we didn't need to worry about how long they were out, so we took that out of the ordinance. And in 608A4, again, the requirement for permits for banner signs. 608A7, we changed that to reduce the maximum flag size in the residential districts, and also to allow display of flags on the side of buildings on state and national holidays. And then in 608B, we had made some modifications to electronic message centers to clarify the options for transitions, nighttime allowance, setting the 100 nit limit, and added flexibility to the method for measuring signs. So those were, let's see, I guess it was, okay. So coming back to the signs in the right-of-way. Again, at the last council meeting where we discussed this, there seemed to be a majority of the council who wanted to disallow signs in the right-of-way as they were proposed in the draft ordinance. So we made that change to, so in your code in these 2 sections, or 3 sections, you'll see those provisions where we've actually given you 2 options. One is just to flat out say no signs in the right-of-way. That is very easy language. We see some challenges with application of that language because the distance between the curb and the right-of-way is not always consistent. We've got curved streets, we've got hilly topography with often a little out in the, on the ground for a code officer to know really where that right-of-way is. Not too hard here in the town core area, town center area where things are a little straighter, but in most of the town it can be very challenging to know where that right-of-way is. And so to really enforce the code could take some time to get the maps, find a way to measure it, and line it up and so forth. So as an alternative, given that most of the time the distance from back of curb to the right-of-way is someplace about 12 or 13 feet, if we set a standard that temporary signs must be 15 feet behind the curb, then most of the time they will be on private property and not in the right-of-way. Sometimes the right-of-way is wider. It might be 18 or 20 feet back of curb, and so sometimes those signs could still be in the right-of-way. But it would be very easy for our staff to just go out and see the edge of pavement, see the back of curb, measure back 15 feet, and the sign's in or out, and have the sign moved if it meets that. So we're proposing that as an alternative for the council to consider. And as you make it, if you do make a decision tonight to approve this, we'll need a decision on which of those options, or if you don't like either of those options, want something else, or don't like 15 feet but want it to be 12 or 20 or whatever, we could consider those too. But we think having a specific number will be a lot easier to enforce long term.
I have a question, Aaron. Should I just open if we want to ask him questions, should I start the hearing now?
Sure, that's your option, Mayor, sure.
Okay, I'm going to do that because I do have a question. That part about the right-of-way being 15 feet and all, the thing when you say that they can't be in a right-of-way, it means that like if you're all along a public area, public property, you say it can't be in the right-of-way, that means there can't be any. So it's like when there were signs on Town Hall or on certain streets there where they were proliferating in some of the discussion that we had. So that's the problem I have with that 15 foot behind the curb, because there are areas that might not still be on private property.
That's correct, Mayor. There are some places where the right-of-way behind curb is more than 15 feet. And so in those cases, those signs, if we pick that number, those signs would still be in the right-of-way.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. So I just said that because I wanted to get the hearing going, so we can start discussing in earnest if you would like. Yes, sir.
You said you had input from stakeholders. How many businesses did we hear from?
Mayor, council member, as early in the process, we had 2 or 3 businesses. We didn't go out for a real extensive review, but we did try to get some people in. Had the chamber there as well as a couple of specific businesses including local sign company, part of that review.
And that stakeholder process, though, was early on before we did any of this discussing. Right. That was before even
a year and a half
P&Z.
ago. Yes.
Right. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll beat a dead horse again. I am vehemently opposed to limiting businesses, especially businesses that are struggling to recover from COVID. I have given the example, it seems like 50 times, Sunbake Bakery on Parkside. Terry has told me countless times that people would not know that the bakery is there if she wasn't allowed to put her sign out. The vitamin shop, I see Tim from Desert Canyon and the restaurant. It is absolutely imperative that we think very thoughtfully about the decision that we're going to make and the long-term ramifications it has. I know a lot of people are like, well, you don't care because you're from Chicago and you see signs and everything. That's not true. I care about the quaintness of the town and everything, but by the same token, I don't want to put restrictions on businesses. We have the chocolate shop, Lou and his wife. I know that their sign brings in business. I don't know. I'm a little perplexed about some council members who believe that there's just this sign pollution and we're Las Vegas, and we're not. I am vehemently opposed when it says that the general consensus was. I didn't get that. I'll let Councilwoman Grzybowski speak. She wasn't for it. I just believe that we really need to focus on helping businesses at this time, not hurting businesses, and let's be a little bit more thoughtful than just ramming this through.
Yeah.
Hold on, Alan. Councilwoman Grzybowski.
I completely agree with our vice mayor. First of all, if we look at 15 feet, we got an email from SAR, the Scottsdale Area Association of Realtors, and they're asking 3 feet from the curb or the sidewalk, which I can see because 15 feet is going to put it practically at people's front doors. And we had an email from a gal who said she's had people knock on her door before to say, hey, your house is for sale. Well, if you put that sucker 15 feet from the curb in front of my house, it's going to be on a fabulous little hill, and it will 100% look like my house is for sale. So I can relate to that. I can't imagine I would just go randomly knocking on somebody's door, but evidently it does happen. And I agree with David. I've talked to the business owners that use the signs, and Terry is the best example, that they're the tiniest little shop there, and I still will drive down the street and not notice the sign, and I know she's there. So I feel like we can do better than 15 feet behind the curb. I feel like we need to do better than 15 feet.
Thank you. Councilman Maxine?
Well, I'm somewhat familiar with the vitamin shop and the bakery, and do they not have their own property in front of their facility? They can put signs there if they want.
The problem with that is there is 2 rows of parking and basically a 2-lane driving area between the street and the front door of those particular businesses. So the sign that she might put on her sidewalk or the little gravel area that happens to be out front with the palm trees, that's not going to be noticed any more than the sign on her building. So I do not see that being beneficial at all.
Excuse me, Alan, I want to ask you something. Is the parking lot private property? And is the
parking lot belongs to Track 208. So the parking lot does not belong
that's
to
not a
the
right-of-way.
building owners. It's Track 208.
Okay, so that I think part of what I was hoping to do was to discuss the things that we agreed on. And I guess, John, I didn't see this in the proposal, but we talked about having a no-cost permitting for commercial or residential if they have true limitations to use private property. And I wonder, I hear what you're saying, but I wonder how many of these places literally have no private property options. And if they did, would they, we would have something in place. And I believe that when we discussed this before, that was something that we actually agreed if we were able to do that. So I wanted to kind of circle back with some of the discussions that we already had. Jerry?
Mayor, that just leads to a point I want to make. I don't think this has been properly thought out. We have questions like you have there. We've heard from 2 or 3 businesses in town. I think we need to do a little bit more work on this. I know we've had a lot of meetings on this, but I can't get behind this because we've got businesses in this town right now that are restricting their hours because they can't get employees. Now we're going to tell them they got to move their signs 15 feet from the road and cut business even further for the hours that they are open. Every sale they make, I said this before, the town gets sales tax revenue from. We should be up here looking for ways to help these businesses survive and come out of this crisis we just went through. I don't think a sampling of 2 or 3 businesses is enough for us to come out and say, boom, we're going to throw this blanket over everybody. There are businesses that need exceptions. I think we need to go back and work through those exceptions with these businesses and find out who they are and what we can do to help them help their business. That's what we're here for.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
I think that, and I don't mean to insult anybody here, but I think the emphasis on helping businesses is overshadowing the purpose of the ordinance. And the purpose of the ordinance is not going to do major, major damage to the businesses, because we all want our businesses and the businesses in our town to thrive and to survive. There's a little bit of overemphasis on the fact that a sign, an A-frame, draws all the business into a business. The businesses that we see in the town, they have signs on their buildings. Most of us know where these businesses are. I think regulating where these signs can be put is important and appropriate for the council to do for aesthetic reasons, for safety reasons, and otherwise. So when you constantly say and emphasize that we don't understand and aren't supporting the businesses, I totally disagree with you.
Okay, Peggy, I'm just going to say this. These signs aren't for you and me. They're for the people that come and visit. I'm not lecturing you, but you lectured me. All I'm going to say is that these signs are for people that visit our town. They're not for you and me. People that come to this town for different events, different things. We know where a lot of these shops are. Every day, every single day I worked at that chocolate shop, somebody came in and said, I found you because your sign was out in front. It's not easy for people to find some of these businesses. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not lecturing you. Thank you.
Okay, any other, but please, no applause, please. We're just trying to have a conversation. Councilman, Magazine?
Well, I think we have a lot of issues here, but one of them that hasn't been discussed is the attitude of 25,000 people in the town who are really sick and tired of seeing this mess in our town. It is unattractive. It does nothing for our town. It seems to me that what's being proposed is a reasonable compromise, and say that people need the signs for their business. People go by those signs all the time. They know where these businesses are. What we don't know, and nobody's been able to tell me, is how much new business are they getting because of the signs.
Thank you. I wanted to also bring up again whether I know that I'm not saying it because we have to be Tempe, but I am saying it because Paradise Valley, Tempe, Sedona, Gilbert, and Mesa have these restrictions. Paradise Valley is largely residential, so I'm sure that people are finding homes to buy, or yard sales and things like that. All these other places have plenty of businesses, and for a town like us that is pretty small, and beauty and all the things that we were talking about a little bit earlier in the meeting are important. It seems to me that if these larger places can survive and somehow find businesses by not having signs in the right-of-way, and again, I do want to hear from the cards. I want to hear from the folks that are here. And then I wanted to, again, ask you, and I want to bring up what we agreed on, what I felt like we agreed on when we had the conversation before, and because I think we're reacting to things that might not be actually what's going to happen. So
Mayor,
anyway,
I have just one more question.
Sure.
How many signs are we talking about? Is it 200? Is it 15? Is it 10? Do we even know?
Well, why don't we hear from, okay, Mike, go ahead, and then we'll hear from the public.
Well, my only question to that is, what's the potential number of signs as well? If every business is entitled to at least one sign, how many businesses do we have? So to me, that's not that's kind of a disingenuous question, and we already have regulations for signs, so these are just different regulations that we're talking about. We already have regulations, but if we want to move on to public, I have more to say later.
Well, I'll definitely call on you, but I just wanted to make sure we let the public have an opportunity in the middle here, and then we'll pick it up again. So,
First is Art Tolis.
Thank you. Good evening. Art Tolis. Nice to be back without a suit and tie. And I also appreciate all you do to go through these meetings, and Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I'm here to speak on this sign ordinance. I'm a business owner in Fountain Hills, Tollus Mortgage Financial Group. I've had an A-frame sign up on Palisades that has brought in business to my business. I'm also a member of the chamber. I've spoken to many chamber members, many of the leads meetings that I'm in, and businesses in town. Tim, who's here, who's also Business Person of the Year this year with Desert Canyon Restaurant. This sign ordinance right now, in my opinion, is so ill-timed. You're coming into the summer in Fountain Hills. Businesses in this community have suffered for the last year. They have tried to get back on their feet. We're just starting to see a lot of activity, a lot of the issues that we've dealt with in the last year subside, and they're just trying to make a living. And now we're talking about sign ordinances again. It's Groundhog Day in Fountain Hills, Arizona, as I've said many times. This has come up for 15 years. Every other year, you're talking about sign ordinances. We have to create the critical mass in this town for businesses to be successful so people can know what is out there and what they can go and they can spend their money on locally. Without those signs for small businesses right now, you don't have the critical mass. You don't have the traffic counts that you need. Your focus right now should be on creating that, create the critical mass, create the tax revenue, create the drive in Fountain Hills so that we get to the point where you have all of these vacant stores that are full. And now you have people, and now you have people walking, and you have a walking community, and you have people going to all these different businesses spending money on hopefully high dollar items that are going to increase your sales tax revenues, which is a huge portion of your budget. Why are we talking about signs again? It is nauseating that we're doing this. I recommend you table this. I recommend you have the sign moratorium like we did in the fall. You extend it to the end of this year. Extend it to the end of December. And allow these businesses to continue to be creative and create opportunities for their business and be successful. That is what we need to do. Create the environment for success for businesses in town. And it's your job to do that. And I hope you table it and just revisit this next year. And hopefully we're going to be in a whole different environment and we'll have more activity in town and more success. Thank you for your time. Nobody agrees. Nothing. Come on.
Okay, I know I'm going to say this wrong, but
It's Ed Stizza.
no, I have other cards here.
Oh, I thought you were. I'm so sorry.
No, it's just I'm just not sure how you pronounce your name.
It's Suto. Sorry.
What is it?
Suto.
Okay.
Hello, Mayor Dickey. How are you, council members? Tim Shuto, DC Bar and Grill up at Desert Canyon Golf Course. You know, we're in a unique situation with our location being so far off of the main street with no signage on the street itself other than a sign provided by the city that says Desert Canyon Golf Course, Town of Fountain Hills, which is one of those old low signs that we have around town that I was told were disappearing, and I haven't seen any disappear. The last year has been a very difficult year for many businesses in Fountain Hills, as I'm sure you all know and I've heard. You know, we were able to put that little A-frame. I mean, I know it's a crummy little A-frame, but I've had so many people come in and say, I've lived here for 20 years. I never knew you were here. Now, I don't have Saddle Bronx location right on the street, and I don't see, you know, some places they don't have signs out because they're right on the street. But a lot of our businesses that are hidden, Terry is a perfect example. She's got the big parking lot, the road's over there. She had a sign in front of her business. Nobody's going to see it. And this has been, like I say, a very trying year. It just seems like a bad time. And I get it. I mean, I understand what you're trying to get at is the signs clutter up the street. And I understand that. But Gilbert, I live in Gilbert. I don't live in Fountain Hills, unfortunately. But when I drive home, I go right through downtown Gilbert. The businesses right on the street have A-frame signs up every single day, and their business is right there. I mean, Pomo Pizzeria has a sign on the street, and they're right on the street. And I don't know what restrictions they have, and I don't know what rules they break or whatever like that, but I've had a number of visits from the code enforcements until recently when they allowed us to do that. But there are options, you know, and the city could look at that. The Department of Transportation has taken another approach, and they have signs that you're welcome to purchase a spot on out on the B line. An option might be for the city to develop some directional signs, better directional signs for our businesses that were all the same. You know, there's some consistency there. I'm sure, you know, and the businesses could purchase if it was a nominal fee, you know, because when you come off of Saguaro, you know, DC Bar and Grill, nobody knows it's there until you have the sign. Now you know, in 2019, 2020, best restaurant in Fountain Hills. Nobody does more advertising than me. Social media, I'm in the paper every week. You know, I do everything possible. And I just think there's some other options that the town could look at. But I agree with Art as maybe push that back to the end of the year and let these businesses get back on their feet. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
This one came in on the website, so I'm not sure. Is Cindy ready here? Okay. The next one is Roy.
Arnsmeyer.
Thank you.
The German name. Thank you all. I appreciate the discussion. I've been in business 50 years, and I've had many companies. I just recently retired. I've been in Fountain Hills for 15 years now. And I just helped the gentleman out as a manager of a little mini storage place. It's kind of invisible. And we put an A-frame out. They had, he's been struggling because it's been empty a lot. And within every day, I get 3 to 4 calls a day. Do you have space? You know, what do you have available? That's for a little mini storage place with one little A-frame that has his name on the building, but they just drive by. And my sign's right there in the middle. And even the owner says, what are you doing? We're almost full. And I says, well, all we did was we put a little sign out. That's all I can say about what little signs do. And it works. It really works. And for somebody that's been in business 50 years, I appreciate your time and understanding. Thank you.
Faith?
Yay to all of you and all your work. People know me as Faith. My name is Janet Faylene Baker. And Jesus brought me to Fountain Hills to live here. I didn't know it at the time. I was trying to find other things, but Jesus brought me here. And I can tell you that many times before I lived here, I would come to Fountain Hills and be absolutely lost, not know what and who and where anything was. If it didn't have these wonderful, you know, if you don't have these wonderful, quaint signs, this is a smaller community. You want to be a smaller community. You don't, what I'm hearing, Fountain Hills doesn't want to become Tempe, Mesa, Scottsdale. Fountain Hills is special. It's absolutely special. Perhaps what you are, maybe you need to change your eyes when you see these signs as clutter. No, they're quaint and they're helpful. And I agree with everyone that has said this is ridiculous to put more hardship on businesses. Don't see these signs as clutter. See them as neighborhood, quaintness, small town. They're user-friendly, and it helps the visions of the community. If you can see the other thing is all businesses that I've seen make the mistake of having their hours and days open in a tiny little box box that you can't see unless you walk right up there. When these signs are out, you know that the business is there, but you also know that they're open. So that's what I have to say. I just think it makes it a user-friendly to visitors, and this community needs the money of visitors. We need to be user-friendly. That's all I have to say.
Now, Mr. Stezza.
Sorry about that. Trying to go over it. So I'm going to talk on the science. This is a pretty simple solution, isn't it? I mean, you guys, why would you table this? Just solve the problem. Art's right, you know, as far as this is ridiculous, but just finish it. Done. Why don't you guys come up with something, think outside of the box, come up with something cute, different. Everybody's got the right ideas. Everybody's got the right. So the problem is the A-frame. Nobody likes the A-frame for some reason, right? Nobody likes the A-frame. So put the A-frame and think outside of the box and come up with a different type of sign, not some crazy lit whatever. I'm not going to call anybody out, but something that is decent and is congruent. And it was a great idea with DC Grill, who I still haven't been to, but I pass your sign every day. I pass your sign every day, and I go, I am going to be there someday. So, because that makes sense, right? He's right. It's often, and all you guys that have been there and appreciate the place, because it's beautiful. I have been there. I just haven't eaten there. So, anyway, come up with a different solution. Think outside of the box and come up with a different sign, okay? Or it's something. Have a forum, discussion and questions. Have the kids write in and design signs, and then make them all the same. And then also pick up on what you were saying about what happened that used to happen. There used to be signs at the front of the town. Well, instead of making them all cluttered and nasty, and come up with something different. If this town isn't deserving of coming up with something different that is aesthetically pleasing, and you don't want blockage with signs and that, look at the blockage that's happening across the street. It's disgraceful. I feel so bad for everybody that approved that. So why didn't you put but this has to do with the signs. Why didn't you put those buildings against ACE? Why didn't you force that developer to do it? Now, you walk down and you're going to be at the art fair, and this has to do with the aesthetic, and now those mountains are blocked. How could you let it happen? How? You know why? Because nobody paid attention to details. So pay attention to details on the signs. Come up with something different. If you want to table it to come up with something different, great. But solve the problem and be done with this. Art's right, but all these people need signs. Of course they do. So come up with something different. Okay? So that's it. Thanks. Have a good day.
Okay, I have no more speaker requests. I have two written comments in opposition to it, and then I have one written comment. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, because that was meant to be.
Yes. This is from Jay Schlum. Don't push A-frame signs back 15 feet from the right-of-way, curb, or roadway. This would prohibit this signage and not be neighborly when having to place signs in neighbors' yards. And obviously, our smaller real estate open house signs would not be visible. Please consider signs placed at least 3 feet behind the back of curb shall not be placed on sidewalks or within the center medians. Signs must be placed so as to not create a sight visibility problem at the intersection.
Thank you very much. So let's have more discussion up here. Mike? I didn't mean to cut you off before.
Can I just say one thing?
I'm sorry?
Can I just say one thing real quick? Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I'm saying yes.
Just real quick, when they talk about all these people that they interviewed or they talk to businesses and they talk, you know, Councilmember Magazine says these 25,000 people are against these signs. No one's ever come and asked me a single thing.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. Mike?
Where to begin? First off, Art, I mean, I don't think any of us revel. Did he leave? I don't think any of us revel in this discussion, and the timing of it, it isn't meant to punish anyone, and we all know what 2020 brought about. We're all well aware of that. This was basically, the timing of it was brought on because of a Supreme Court ruling that we had to address certain things in our sign code. So in order to do that, it's like we might as well look at the whole sign code. So that's what we did. It's not meant to punish, and we all know that it's been a tough time. I just want to say, before I'm accused of being anti-business, or the town is accused of that, I mean, we did dole out $300,000 in stimulus money to 66 businesses out here last year because of COVID. There was every brick and mortar place that applied got an average of $5,000 from us. And so that's one pro-business thing that we did. I mean, we also did a lot of new paving down here in the downtown. We did sidewalk infill. We enhanced traffic and safety for pedestrians and vehicles. This is all in the downtown area primarily to make the community more walkable, more business friendly. So I just kind of take umbrage to some of these accusations that, this is intentionally hurting or the timing of it. I mean, we all want our storefronts full, of course. And, someone online was saying something, well, what about the tourists? And I think that came up tonight as well. I mean, the town, this current fiscal year in the budget was $203,000 to promote tourism to Fountain Hills, to bring people up here to patronize our businesses and our restaurants, come to our special events. And we also co-sponsor and put on several special events here in town that bring tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people up here on an annual basis. So we're doing all that. And then the new fiscal year, it starts July 1, we budgeted $211,000 for tourism efforts. So we have 2 full-time employees at Town Hall that work on economic development and tourism. We do a lot of collaboration with the chamber, and I know Art mentioned, leads groups, networking, socials, that kind of thing. Yes, I mean, business, some people have told me, well, Mike, not everyone's on social media, so how do they find these places, or how do the businesses advertise? And Tim, you're one example of that, of course, and I know many other businesses are as well. A lot of options out there besides social media. There is the print advertising, direct mail, coupon packs, being part of the chamber, leads groups, networking, the phone directory, joining a service club, talking yourself up, mixers, ribbon cuttings, all, word of mouth still, to me, represents one of the best ways to network and be known in the community. So to me, there's just a lot more options out there than these A-frames that are, and I know it's been said, oh, don't look at them as clutter, but a lot of them aren't wonderful and quaint. That's the issue. And if every business took advantage of the current ordinance, it would be even worse. So we're just trying to address these things. Everyone is always says how beautiful Fountain Hills is in terms of the environment and the desert and the views and the dark sky, et cetera, et cetera. I think, too, we need to consider the aesthetics of our signage. And in this code, this new proposal that we're looking at takes into account a lot of other enhancements that are not even going to be addressed here in terms of looking at signage on buildings and allowing them to be more creative and giving them more space in terms of how they put a sign on their building or their door. I just think, it's been said we can be better than that, and I'll take that same phrase and say, yeah, I think we can be better than that. You know, I've been out here over 35 years, and, you know, yeah, signs have been talked about a lot out here, and, you know, businesses still struggle out here even with A-frames. So I don't know. I don't know if, you know, I know, Mayor, you had mentioned the, you know, totally eliminating the right-of-way. I mean, I'm willing to maybe consider coming into a certain distance, you know, since we're still allowing A-frame signs out there. It's just a matter of if they're going to be, you know, 10 feet back, 15 feet. And I, too, am willing to consider some kind of procedure where businesses can come in and get a permit or talk about their individual property. I went out this morning and measured in front of the famous Sunbaked Bakery. So yeah, there's the curb, there's gravel and rocks and stuff, and then there's the curb for the parking lot. Well, I measured off just a little over 15 feet between the two curbs. So, yeah, you know, everyone, yeah, I know, wants it out on right next to the curb for visibility, but I just, you know, that's been an issue, I think. So I'm willing to look at something a little bit different if that's the consensus. If not, you know, we move on. But I just think that this is, you know, the timing, again, it's not something that we like. It's just a matter of we need to conform to Supreme Court rulings, and that's what we're trying to do here. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I agree with Mike, and also I think that I feel as though we got a little bit off the discussion because we're really talking about locale for these signs and where they can be placed, not the issue of whether or not we're going to allow A-frames, T-frames, or other type of signs. So I think it's really about locale.
The reason I wanted to bring up the 15-foot thing, though, is just, again, we can't regulate based on content. So you go down, well, like a Lago or something, when there were a lot of signs that were up there. They weren't for particular candidates or anything, but they were message signs, you know, we don't like this, we do like that, whatever, but they weren't, you know, what you would say were typical protected political signs. So if we do the 15-foot and it's private property, if we do the 15-foot behind the curb, then you can have however many signs that say, you know, no turn on red signs, we hate cameras, whatever the situation is. So when that happened, and I wish people would remember how they felt seeing all those signs all along the way, whether it could be anything. It could say literally anything. We cannot control that. So there could be a sign that says, and you know, whatever is most offensive to you, just think of it that way, because that could be there. So that's the desire to go with not allowing it in the right-of-way. Or, you know, this is public property here, but it's town property. And how many times have we come into a meeting and seen something that was, you know like we could have walked into it, there'd be a ton of signs about the detox center, and it's on private property. So we can't control the message. And that's the Supreme Court dilemma that we have. So we can't say, yeah, you can have a yard sign, but you can't have a whatever other sign. So, and again, I primarily have feelings for the residents of this town, like as far as, it's no secret, you know, that's my number one. Obviously, I want them to be served by the businesses we have. I want our businesses to thrive. I have to say, I agree with Mike. It's hard for me to think that a make or break for a business is a sign. But if it is, like where Tim's is and stuff, that's where we get into saying, where is the hardship? Who really has a hardship that they can't put the A-frame on their own property, and what can we do about it? Can we have some kind of a, and again, John, I don't think I saw that ability, but we could put that ability in. The other idea I thought good was, you know, out on Shea or some of these other things that we talked about that for many years, you know, like do we just say hotel or do we say the name of the hotel? And does that become an opportunity for an ad? I think that's a great idea, you know, to do something like that that brings people in. They might just think they're on Shea and that's all Fountain Hills is. So, and that would actually tie into your place also. So I don't think by taking these steps, we're doing the damage that seems to be reflected by some of this conversation, but I'm certainly willing to keep listening. Councilwoman?
I know we cannot underwrite the content of the signs, and that's really what brought all this to play. But I'm sure everybody in this room, I know everybody on my email list, had something, whether it be the election period or whatever, one of those signs, whether it be pro or con, ticked them off, and I got emails. These things are ugly, they're stupid, they need to go. There are time restrictions. There's rule restrictions. The sign has to say who's providing the sign. If it doesn't, then the sign needs to go. 2, there's restrictions on how long the sign can be out before the election period. I feel like we're talking about punishing our business community because of the 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, that yes, those signs piss us all off. I know they do. I got a slew of emails from all sorts of people. I just feel like we're punishing the business community because of a small segment of time that, granted, right now, we're not driving down the street seeing those signs, so we're not feeling that inside. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, you mentioned that maybe for the hardship cases, they can come to us and fill out the form or whatever, and then maybe we allow something. I feel like that's that's subjectivity that I don't think we want to be involved in. Then we'll get accused of, whether we be the decision maker or somebody upstairs is the decision maker, they'll be accused of making favorites. So I don't like the idea of this particular business can come in and fill out the hardship form unless it's very black and white and very objective, where we aren't being accused of making favorites.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman.
is a motion in order?
Let me remember about the hearing part. Does the hearing go, the motion first or the hearing end?
Well, at sorry, Liz, what? Sorry, the hearing ends. You're at the hearing, right. The hearing would end, and then we would I don't believe a motion is pending, though. I haven't heard.
Okay, I'll close the hearing. That doesn't mean we can't talk anymore. I'll close the hearing, and then Alan?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm going to move to adopt Resolution 21-2021-02 and Ordinance 21-09, as well as to direct staff to design a hardship process to be brought back to council.
Thank you. John?
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember, we need direction on the A or B choice that's in the code in terms of out of the right-of-way or the 15-foot back, or come up with a C if you want to do that, but we need direction on that, because right now it lists both.
Alan,
Mayor,
what?
I'd like to include in my motion the 15-foot setback.
Is there a second?
Alan, could you please repeat your motion? Thank you.
Move to adopt Resolution 20-2021-02 and Ordinance 21-09 and direct staff to report back to council with the language for a hardship proposal. And included in my motion would be the 15-foot setback.
Thank you. Is there a second?
You know what, I'll second for purpose of discussion.
Thank you. Well, we're not ready to vote yet. I want to ask Aaron a question about amending. since he added the part about the 15 feet, can I amend that out?
Mayor and council, this might be a good time to discuss the amendment process because I anticipate that there may be one or two forthcoming. At least it sounds that way. So going to the council rules of procedure. So if a council member wishes to make a motion to amend a motion that's pending on the floor, i.e. amend the main motion, the motion to amend can be made, state what the proposed amendment is. If that motion gets a second, we will vote on the amendment first. If we vote on the amendment and the amendment carries, we then vote on the underlying main motion. So,
Mayor?
Yes, Alan?
My understanding is that the maker of the motion can accept amendments. Is that not correct?
Well, you can change your motion, you can withdraw your motion and make a new one if you like, right?
Procedure.
Kenny?
Liz, I'll look to you because we have a motion in a second.
That can be done. My only concern is we have rules of procedure that doesn't address that, so.
Okay. I mean, if the maker of the motion addressed or not, if the maker of the motion decides that he wants to withdraw it, I mean, if no one's objects to it, I don't really see a reason to oppose that.
Hey, Alan, do you like to make a different motion?
I'm not clear on what's
Councilman Magazine, do you withdraw your motion?
not yet. Let's explain. Withdraw it.
I can't hear. I didn't hear, sorry. Councilman Charno has a question.
So, Alan, I don't know if this is for you or for, put Aaron back on the spot, but the provision about coming back with a hardship process, I mean, does that mean we have to include that in the ordinance, or can we, once staff comes back with something, maybe reject it? Just don't know how that would work.
It was not my intent for the staff, for the council to have to accept what the staff comes back with. I've never heard of that happening.
So I guess one thing, and maybe John might have some additional concerns or thoughts about that process. To the extent that's a process that the council wants to see, this is just me speaking from the not so much a policy perspective, but a legal. I see concerns of it just being, if a person wants a hardship, they can apply for a hardship. I would think that if that's going to be the process, we would certainly want to, as Councilwoman Grzybowski said, put pretty clear and specific contours in place for whether there would be approval or denial of that, recognizing that nothing that's in black and white is going to cover every situation, and there will be people that are brought within the scope of it that maybe we don't think should, and people that aren't within the scope of those exceptions that maybe we think should or shouldn't be. So that I do think that staff would need the opportunity to explore and draft something for the council's approval is what I'm trying to get at. John, am I off base?
Yes, Alan?
I think I can simply. I'm going to withdraw my motion, but then I'm going to state a single motion and then a second motion. The first motion is just to move to adopt Resolution 2021-02 and Ordinance 21-09. That's the first motion.
With the 15 feet or with the no right-of-way?
15 feet.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. There's no second. Alan, would you like to change it in any way?
No.
Okay.
So the proposed motion dies.
There's
no second. So as I understand it, there is no motion on the floor.
Me too. That's my understanding. Yep.
All right. Well, I'll jump in on what Councilwoman Grzybowski was talking about on the political signs, because obviously that comes up all the time, and it's been on social media like, well, those political signs. A lot of people don't understand that state legislature has preempted us from regulating those signs. There was a time, a lot of us old timers will remember that we didn't have those types of signs out here. And so we got preempted on that, just like many other issues. So, but I, you know, on a personal basis, I want to say, look, if I'm going to back an ordinance that restricts A-frame signs, you know, I'll personally commit that if I run for office again in the future, may or may not happen, that I won't put any political signs in the right of way for me, because I just think you know, it would be hypocritical of me, I think, to adopt an ordinance like this and then, oh, well, you know, state legislature lets me do it, so I'm going to do it. So I'm just making that personal commitment for myself if that comes to be, so.
And Mike, I want to mention that the town of Fountain Hills has sign-free zones, which are still in existence and still legal, and they cover pretty much Shea, Palisades, Saguaro. I don't have the map with me, but there's a map with a red line on it that is still a legal document for the town of Fountain Hills. So we did take those steps. We weren't enforcing them because of the Reed issue making everything very, very challenging. So we're gonna, so we do have restrictions in place, even on the state statute that preempted us. But that's good, what you said. I'd like to not get signs too, Councilman.
I just think it's important for me to restate something. And the effects, right, Mike, the timing may be bad, but we got to consider the effects of this. We're not out to put businesses out of business. I understand that, and I agree with that. But it will hurt some of our businesses. And I still want to go back and say, how many signs are we talking about? As disingenuous as it may be, we don't know. And how many businesses were contacted? We've got 2 here tonight that weren't even contacted or spoken to. So would it be out of line for us to maybe think about bringing this back after we do a little bit more research on this? And maybe we can come to a decision on it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mike, I personally want to congratulate you for promising not to put your face all over town again on political signs.
It's not all over town, just the right of way.
Okay, but it just warms my heart to know that. But I don't believe that there's probably a business owner that really cares about our political signs right now. I will not overestimate, I will not apologize for being pro-business. All of the businesses that I mentioned, I frequent a lot. As you can tell by my size, I'm a big fan of the bakery. And my sister, I'll just tell a quick story for the people that think that people that live in town don't, know where all the businesses are. My sister's owned property here in Fountain Hills since 1980. She's a snowbird from Wisconsin, and she was absolutely ecstatic over the Thanksgiving holiday that she came and presented me with some cinnamon rolls. Did I know about this brand new bakery that opened in town? She found it by driving down the street. So that's just one example. So I think that this needs work. As Councilman Friedel said, there's business owners in this meeting tonight that were never contacted. So I'm willing to compromise. I'm not trying to be hard-headed or anything, but 100% I'm pro-business. COVID has decimated them. And I don't care if a sign generates only 1 sale a week. That's 1 sale more than they had without it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other discussion? Alan?
No discussion from me, other than to say that I'm not sure it makes any difference how many signs there are. All you have to do is drive down the street. They're very unattractive, and they don't enhance the looks of this town.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of, too. I don't know we don't have to count them, but I mean, they're everywhere. And, a lot of it has to do with yard signs and yard sales. I mean, not yard signs, yard sales and the boxes and all that. Well, it's the same, that's the problem. We can't separate it. We can't just say you can't have a yard sale sign or whatever. So, anybody want to make a motion I'm willing to look at things just like you're saying. I'm willing to look at the out-of-town signs. I don't know that we can make motions and talk about, not out of town, but on Shea and all those. I don't know, because we're starting to make motions that sound like they're a little bit too, go ahead. Yeah, nebulous.
Mayor, Council, I'm going to respond to a couple of things that I've heard. Hopefully it doesn't muddy the waters too much more than they already are. But so, as has been pointed out, when it comes to political signs, we can't really control those. The state's preempted us. We've had some signs in the past that have been what we would have termed under the current code ideological signs, kind of similar to political signs, but they have just kind of expressed an opinion, and there have been a lot of them put around. If they're going to be able to be classified as a political sign, then we're looking at them under the code. They're only allowed one per business, one per lot. And so you couldn't put a whole bunch of them down the street like we see with political signs. They are controlled under the new code in terms of the number, because we can control numbers of signs. So if that's been part of the concern, I think, again, the new code will help regulate that by limiting the number that can happen. In terms of allowance in residential versus the commercial districts, A-frame signs are allowed only in commercial, except when used as a residential directional sign, those that are getting you to the yard sales or the open houses. If you want to eliminate those from being used as residential signs, that's an option. If you want to delete the category altogether of residential directional signs, you could do that. Again, you're going to have some pushback from certain groups, but you could do that and still allow them in the commercial districts. You're welcome.
Thank you, yeah. More complicated, yeah. Well, that was part of what I was going to say, though, is I think there's a lot in here that we agreed on, and I don't know at this point to go through, if we can go through and say, we agree on no Shea, no banners, no, there's a lot of agreement here. So is there something we can pull out that will rescue this for a different time?
608A1.
I'm sorry?
608A1. Is it 608A1?
Yes, that's 608A1 deals with A-frame signs, yes.
I don't think we need.
The temporary sign?
I don't
Yes.
really think we need to do that, because one of the whole reasons is to come to consensus about A-frames, et cetera. I don't think people are objecting to the A-frames. I think we're talking about location.
Talk about what?
The location of them. I think we're talking about D, 1D. And there's an or in there. Alan made a motion previously to accept it with 15 feet. I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution 2021-02 and ordinance 2109 with not allowing the signs in the right of way.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Well, I'll second it because it's better than nothing.
I'm sorry?
I will second it because it's better than nothing.
Thank you. So this would be with the not in the right of way, and then we could revisit the idea of the hardship or ability to permit. We could also revisit at any time putting signs on Shea or Saguaro. That would help direct. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, yes, sir.
John, I have a quick question. So we're not talking about garage sale signs here? I'm kind of confused in terms of.
Yeah, Mayor, council member, what we term today garage sale signs, would term open house signs, are covered under the residential directional signs, and they are allowed in the code. But if part of the concern was, well, we just don't want them in residential, that would be a way to not allow them in residential, but still allow the A-frames in the commercial areas.
But that's not the motion on the table
Let's
now,
not do
though,
that.
is that they would only be allowed on their own property.
Correct.
1 second clarification. Doesn't this apply, like the A-frames, the post-board signs, yard signs, and residential signs? In the motion, do I need to clarify it to include all those? Or or is it can we just do it blanket, or do we have to itemize them out?
Mayor, Councilmember, I think from what you said, it covers it, because each one has the same either-or position. So by
That's
saying
what I
which one of those
intended.
ors you want in each one being not in the right-of-way.
That's what I
Unless
intended.
you wanted something different, but otherwise we would just make them all
That's
the
what I
same.
intended.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Yes.
I just want to clarify, the motion that Peggy has made is disqualifying real estate agent signs because they're A-frame signs in residential areas? Is that how I understand?
It's my understanding that the real estate signs have not been itemized out, and this is a general sign ordinance, and that the A-frame postboard yard signs in residential, they could include real estate signs. These are generic definitions of signs. So I don't understand why there would be another issue about real estate signs.
So the permanent, well, not the permanent, but
Temporary.
the one that's dug into the ground in front of my house for sale is still allowed. But if a real estate agent is going to have an open house and use however many, I think it was 6 signs to direct them to my house for an open house, that's not allowed? Is that what I'm understanding?
It would be allowed on private property.
So you would have to come to me as a homeowner and ask if you can put your sign on my property to direct you to the neighbor's house to sell, is how I'm understanding this.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. That's the way the motion is, and that covers all temporary signs will not be allowed in
the
rights of
right-of-way.
way. You can do whatever on your own property, and again, it also includes no signs in the medians, no signs in sidewalks, banners, and all those other things that we talked about.
Mayor,
Yes, Alan.
clarification. The motion then assumes that a sign can be placed 6 inches off the right-of-way. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, as long as no part of it overhangs the right-of-way.
Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion and a second. Mike?
Just reading John's memo, with as far as code enforcement and the issues with the topography and this and that, and determining where the right-of-way property line meet, I think 15 feet was too much. I'd be willing to go 10 feet in terms of, that would be easier for code enforcement to figure out in terms of curb and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'll move to amend the motion to 10 feet back a curb. Is that sufficient as far as the intention?
Just want to make sure that it's clear then. So the motion is to, which we haven't gotten a second yet, I haven't heard. Yes, we have. Oh, we have. Oh, Alan did. It would be to amend the motion so that such signs will not be prohibited in the right of way, but rather to allow for 10 foot back from the curb. That's okay.
Correct.
Is there a second for that?
Yes. Mayor, I second it.
Okay, so you're okay with signs in the right-of-way, 10 feet behind the curb?
And Mayor and Council, sorry, we would just be voting on the amendment now. It would still need to vote on the underlying main motion once it's amended.
Okay.
Alan, are you okay with that, or are you changing the whole second from right-of-way to the 10 feet behind the curb?
Seconded the amendment.
Okay. So, I just had a question, I can't remember. All right, so the amendment is then to approve signs would be okay in the right-of-way, but 10 feet behind the curb, right? Okay, and there's a second, so all in favor, please?
Roll call vote, Mayor. Call for a roll call vote.
Okay, sure. All in favor?
Sorry, you said in the right of. I don't think that's correct.
I'm sorry?
I think you said in the right-of-way, but I don't think that's correct.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it could be. Anything that's 10 feet behind the curb could very well be in a right-of-way.
I see. You're right.
Okay. All right, we'll take a roll call.
Councilmember McMahon,
Nay.
Councilmember Friedel,
No.
Councilmember Magazine,
Aye.
I voted wrong.
Councilmember Grzybowski,
No.
Councilmember Charno,
Aye.
Mayor Dickey,
No.
Vice Mayor Spellage.
Nay.
Okay,
Motion fails 2-5.
thank you. So anybody want to make any other amendments to the motion on the floor? The motion is to adopt Resolution 2021-02 and Ordinance 2109, which includes the prohibition of signs in the right-of-way, of temporary signs. And we have a motion and a second, so we'll just do a roll call on that.
Vice Mayor Spellage,
Nay, and I'll explain my vote. I believe that,
Order.
Hold on a second. Vice Mayor?
what is going on?
I don't know.
Well, ask him. He's objecting to, I guess, me speaking. What is it, Alan?
Oh, I didn't hear him.
Order if we're voting.
And I'm not allowed to explain my vote?
Not till afterward.
I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Hold on, please. Aaron? Do we explain our votes?
I mean, this,
point of order, normally when you're taking
Yeah.
a vote, you do not explain your vote when you're taking the roll.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that's what
that's
Councilmember Magazine.
that's typical, but I mean,
They do in the legislature.
Nothing's typical
but
tonight.
What do we do?
In the legislature, they explain their vote,
Absolutely.
but I guess we don't.
Okay. Well, it's a huge no.
Thank you.
Councilmember Magazine,
Aye.
Councilmember Grzybowski,
No.
Councilmember Charno,
Aye.
Mayor Dickey,
Aye.
Councilmember Friedel,
No.
Councilmember McMahon.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-3.
Thank you.
Mayor?
All right, we're going, I've been asked to take a break, so we'll take a little adjournment or We'll call the meeting back to order. Alan, are you there? Well, we'll move on then to our next item, which is actually a public hearing also, so I'll do that before I forget. And John?
Mayor and council, one other item here related to the sign ordinance, in that flags are regulated by the sign ordinance. We have a provision in section 507 of the zoning ordinance which deals with height limits. And subsection B, it gives exemptions to the height limits. Basically, the first part says you got to meet the height, can't exceed the heights allowed in a zoning district, and so, various districts allow different heights. But in 507B, it allows some exemptions to those maximum heights. Number 7 in that list allows for flagpoles to exceed the height limit if they're flying certain flags. Well, there you have to read the content of the flag to see if it meets the requirement, and that becomes illegal under the Reed decision. Plus, just practically, it's a challenge. Someone puts up a flagpole of 40 feet in a district that only allows 30, saying they're going to fly the American flag, then we have to monitor all the time, make sure it's an American flag. And then if they don't, we're going to make them take down the flagpole. That just doesn't work. So in order to be compliant with Reed, allow people to have their flagpoles, we're suggesting, recommending that we just delete the part of the ordinance that limits the type of flag. So if you want a taller flagpole on your property, as long as it meets the other requirements, if it falls, it stays on your property, you can do so, but we're not going to regulate the content of that flag.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? No? Thank you. Please, someone make a motion?
I'll go ahead and move approval of ordinance 21-10 as presented.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, John. Oh, I did it again. Close the public hearing. Next, we have a purchasing agreement for fire alarm control panels. Justin? Hi. Do you have an intro or anything, Dave?
Madam Mayor, council members, we're going to first do a little history lesson here. As you recall, as part of the budget process and the capital project process for this fiscal year 2021, certain projects were selected as a priority due to the uncertainty of the financial situation moving forward. Excuse me. As part of that, we agreed and council selected projects, and we move forward on those few selected projects. You'll also recall that in December of last year, staff came back with an update in regards to the financial situation, Mr. Pock, and we provided the remaining capital projects for moving forward. This was one of those projects with moving forward. It should be noted that we have faced some challenges in regards to this particular or these devices due to the suppliers, which are limited, wanting the town to enter into agreements that were not in the best interest moving forward for the town government and the facilities in regards to fire monitoring. With that said, we did solicit 3 of the vendors. Each of the 3 had proposals. This vendor that was selected tonight was not the least expensive. However, they were the least intrusive and the best fit with the best plan for monitoring, maintenance, and support moving forward for the next 10 to 12 years. It should also be noted that their cost was higher than the dollar amount that was originally allotted for this in the CIP, and that is certainly spelled out in the staff report. I'll give a refresher for those that are at home listening to this. There was originally $80,000 budgeted in the capital improvement program. However, we were able to save $35,000 from some other building improvements that took place earlier this year, and we intend to utilize those savings to finish purchasing and having installed these fire alarm controllers. It should also be noted that the intent, and I believe this to be factual and possible, is to have this work done before June 30th, especially in the community center where we will be making substantial upgrades starting in July of this year, that if there are any minor blemishes or scratches or any other issues related to these changes, we can immediately take care of those. And it should be noted that doesn't mean that whatever takes place in the library, if there's any dings or blemishes or anything there, we will also take care of those at that time. It should be noted that there was a comprehensive study done on our control panel to determine whether or not it was feasible, and we now know that due to its age, it's simply not feasible or reasonable to continue to expect it to last beyond its lifespan, which it is currently beyond. It's just not affordable to repair. And at some point in time, if we are unable to secure any parts, electronical or mechanical, that we will not have adequate coverage for the investment, which are the town's buildings. With that said, and I know there's a lot of information in this staff report, we tried to convey as much critical information as possible. If there are additional questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question. I would like to know what the 10% owner's allowance of $10,000 is, and also, this is a one-time cost to put the new systems in, and is there a monthly cost to keep them going, and is that going to be a separate presentation?
Madam Mayor, council members, those are excellent questions. The owner's allowance is to cover the unknowns, since these are older products and will require considerable amount of energy and effort to remove them. If something else is discovered to be damaged or as a result of this is damaged, we have a little bit of contract authority to cover that. The answer to your second question is we already have an existing contract for monitoring.
Okay.
That contract, in fact, will be back for renewal and an increase, because not only does that contract cover our fire alarm monitoring, it also covers our inspections. This is also the vendor that provides all of our security cameras for not only the town campus, but all the other town properties.
Okay, if they're not a hassle to remove and the $10,000 is not required or the time isn't required, do they not get paid, or is this just all part of the 10% owners thing, all part of the contract regardless?
It is not, ma'am. The 10% is at, in this case, my discretion, and not a penny of that will be spent unless they can demonstrate, and we will be on site, that they have earned a portion or a percentage of that money.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or speaker cards? Thanks, Justin. Somebody want to make a motion, please?
Move to approve cooperative purchasing agreement 2021-052 with Climate Tech LLC for fire alarm control panels in the community center, library, museum, in the amount of $111,749.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Justin.
Thank you.
Our next item is about art, and Rachel's here to talk about that.
All right, I'm going to see if this one will work. All right. I can see it, but apparently I don't think that you guys can. I was going to say, thanks, Robbie, because it's not working the way we normally work.
I think it's because all these ones are still open down here.
Ah, that might be. Confusing it. You have to be smarter than that. Yeah, we went that one.
Which one? This one?
Mm-hmm. There we go. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, tonight we're here to take a look at our first public art decommissioning. This is actually a first time, so I wanted to walk everyone through just a few reminders. How we got here. Our public art program was founded in 1994. In 1997, the town council adopted a resolution designating the Arts Council. So that's when we first established. If you can remember way back to March of 2020, right before COVID, we were here to update the public art policy, where we introduced our master art plan as well as the decommissioning process. So this is a new process for us. Why are we here? We're here because there is a piece of art in our community center. As you know, we're getting ready to renovate the community center. I know we've been talking about it. Can't wait. Part of that renovation is to remodel the men and women's restroom. In the ladies' restroom, for those that may not know, there is a mural on the ladies' restroom wall. It was painted by a resident, Megan Junk. She painted it as part of the opening of the facility, so it is 20 years old. And it is painted onto the drywall. So it's not hung, it's not displayed, it's right on the wall. So as part of that renovation, we are getting ready to repaint and do some tile work. So as a result, that artwork will have to be removed. So by policy, this is what our policy says. There are conditions when a work of art may be considered for removal from public display. If a number of conditions are met, one of which is that no suitable site for the work is available, or significant changes in the use or character of the design of the site affect the integrity of the work. I would say that the remodeling and repainting and tiling work affect that. So the Public Art Committee considered this as part of the policy. Again, it was reviewed at their May 3rd meeting. It was unanimously approved to decommission and remove the work. The artist has been contacted, and we have taken photographs to document and memorialize the piece. So, and for those who aren't aware or familiar, this is the mural that we're talking about, just so everybody has full transparency.
What, Jerry? You've seen it?
Again, I realize that not everybody's aware, and that's okay. It's funny, after 20 years, I assumed everybody knew it. And again, it's, it is a piece that's been there for a long time. Unfortunately, it just isn't able to maintain it as part of the renovations. So if there's any questions, otherwise, the next step would be the approval of the council to decommission.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I personally know Megan. She's a member of our Noon Kiwanis Club, and, rather whimsical, just as she is. And I don't know if you remember, Mayor, and it's upstairs when you go up the stairwell. She did do a fountain thing. It was kind of kicking off her 50th anniversary for the whole fountain piece, and she did a real nice, I don't know if it's a painting or what it is. It's pretty cool looking, but anyway, it's time to move on and do some renovations. So with that, I'll go ahead, move to adopt Resolution 2021-12.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
And I do remember Megan Carbone at the time,
Yeah,
right? And she caused a lot of nice laughter when we go in there. So we really thought that we appreciated her artwork. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. So our next item is the usual legislative bulletin. Usually Grady's kind of on top of all this, but there's, as far as bills go, there's like one problematic one that'll pass. So, but we really just heard about the budget. So did you see that? Did you see that today, Dave?
Yep. I think, and I just confirmed with Angela that we have already sent letters to the entire legislature on that flat tax proposal that would decrease revenues to the cities and towns. I think our cut was approximately 1.2 million per year. Would be phased in over, I think, 3 years. But so we weighed in on that. I don't think there's much else to that we can do on that. And the league's position is, hey, the cut is fine, but just hold the cities and towns harmless. So that's, if there's another way to keep hold the cities and towns, that's so be it. But I think we've already weighed in on it. So.
Thank you. I know Jerry spoke personally to legislators, but today then they said that, because I think the league was looking for a percentage difference in the state shared revenue because we get 15%. So they were saying that what would hold harmless would be to increase that percentage, and then that way any increase in economic activity or income and all that would be reflected. But today they just before we started, they sent us that they were looking at a flat amount that would not, so that would not reflect any kind of growth, and it would stop, they would stop giving it to the cities and towns and counties by 2024. So after that, we would continue to, probably here in Fountain Hills lose about $1 million a year. Other cities, obviously a lot more. And then two other things they mentioned, that this offset is not visible in the budget as it's been, so they said that it's there, but nobody sees it. And then the last thing was that this, as an appropriation put in this way, it would be easily removed in a future budget. So I think, again, it just came in right before we came, but I know that they would appreciate if we did any increased discussions that we could with our three legislators. So, but I don't think there's any action to take except for on our own if you'd like. The next item is actually more related to, oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just was wondering if the tobacco and vape preemption law, it's HB 2682, is kind of a big tobacco kind of bill, and yeah, it has some regulations in there about vaping and tobacco products and stores being a certain distance away from schools, et cetera, but the league and several organizations representing schools, local governments, healthcare vehemently oppose the legislation passed on an 18-12-2 vote in the House, senators, I guess. So would like some consideration on that. I know it didn't come up at our coalition meeting, but I know this bill was around last year as well, and I just would ask for maybe some consideration to oppose that one.
Do you know where it is? Whoops. Okay. Well, I'm okay with that if we can find where it is and we can have it and we can weigh in.
What's the bill number, Councilman?
Yeah, HB 2682. It says continues to the House for concurrence and a final vote, so.
And I
don't know how old this report was.
Maybe, yeah. That might be our last resort. But okay, do you want to do that? Do you want to make a motion, or is everybody okay? Okay, would you prefer a vote, or are you okay with it?
It sounds like we have consensus.
Okay,
I think I'm seeing.
great, thank you.
At least
Thanks,
no
Mike.
opposition, so we'll go ahead and look at that.
Yeah. So, and then the last item is that every year the league puts together their policy that they would like to bring forward to the legislature. And the way they come about that is that they have these policy committees. And again, I want to thank all of you for being part of these committees. I think most of you, except I think Sharon, you said yours was, you didn't have it, or somebody didn't have their committee. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it was Liz. Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Committee, that's what Sharon represents us on. And I wanted to ask each of you, if you went to your committees, if there was anything you wanted to ask us, or if you had any ideas of things that you would like us as a council to take a position on or to forward. Sharon, was there anything at the meeting that? Okay, so yours was supposed to be May 5th. So I think you have one on June 3rd also. So let's see, Mike, you're on Transportation Infrastructure. Did they meet on the 6th?
No, I think that was postponed as well. So,
Oh, my
yeah,
goodness,
so,
okay.
yeah.
Well, but your next one is June 1st. So, and then Dave, yours was supposed to be the 4th? Did you meet? No? The public safety, military? Okay.
We discussed the issue about police agencies having a hard time recruiting police officers to take the jobs. Therefore, they were going to go back and ask retired officers who are still post-certified to possibly join agencies.
Okay, thank you. And, of course, we support whatever you support in there. And then Peggy, you're on this neighbors' sustainability, quality of life. Did you guys meet?
They're working on a couple things. They kind of put some things off to the June 1st so that there can be a larger consensus on what they want to present.
Okay. All right, well, let's just be clear that we're all for what you're doing, and then if some other issue comes up, and I know the deadlines are like next week, but, you know, the league will consider them, and then then it kind of moves up the chain, and then in August, when we have our conference, then we have a resolutions committee which mostly mayors, and then, you know, we decide whether we'll go into the next session and try to get any of this stuff happening. So thank you so much for your involvement with that. Our last item is the council discussion direction to the town manager. We heard from folks. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a formal request and be on the record that the town attorney review the voting on the sign amendment or the sign ordinance and make sure that it complied with all council rules and everything. I believe once he reviews it, if there's a problem with it, I want the vote null and void and brought back in front of the council.
Anything else, or anything from any, we heard from some folks who we said we would follow up on some stuff. Justin was going to follow up.
We've received that direction, Mayor, yeah.
Yeah. And then on that note, too, two things that we talked about, which was allowing folks to apply for signs in the right-of-ways. We spoke about directional signs or some other sort of signage in on Shea or Saguaro. And then what I forgot to mention is maybe John, you could also look up some kind of grace period or transitional time and how staff would want to handle it, which is the way they do it with all of our ordinances when there's violations or anything, that we're always want to try to be as flexible as possible. So with that, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.